Guys, I'm super excited to bring you this pack, and I'm super excited to show you how to cook it. So we got this Cape Rim rib fillet here, 500 grams, gonna be enough for the two of you. I'm gonna show you how to reverse sear it so you can't mess it up. Foolproof way to cook. We've got these potatoes here. I'm gonna show you how to turn them into Paris mash, a really fancy word for just super creamy, velvety, buttery mash. And then we've got these other vegetables here. I'm gonna show you how to tie all this together and cook it and time it so you have a lovely meal, a restaurant quality meal with your better half. So one of the key things about cooking a steak, and especially one this big, is grabbing it out of the fridge and bringing it up to room temperature. Good thing about the way that Super Butcher packs it is it's vacuum sealed. So you can chuck this on the bench, on your chopping board, and not worry about it. I've got my oven for the reverse sear set at 100, between 100 and 110 degrees, and we're gonna make sure that we get that done first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you through some preparation, or what we in the kitchen call your mise en place. This is what's gonna get you ready to time your meal so you can bring it all together. Everything's hot, the temperature, the consistency you want it to be, and there's no stress. Stress is where people usually mess it up or they forget it in the timing, so let's go through it. Mise en place I'm gonna start with is the carrots. I like to leave a little bit of the green on because the presentation looks really good. We'll just peel them. We chose these ones because they're a little bit smaller, a little bit sweeter. They're gonna cook a little bit better. When we finish them in the pan, they're gonna finish nicely. They're gonna look nice on the table as well. All right, with the broccolini, much like asparagus, this bottom piece is pretty woody, so I always tend to trim them up a bit. You can peel the bottoms off them if you like them a little bit cleaner, but I never really bother with it. They're really, really nice like that anyway. So I've just got these potatoes here. We're gonna put them straight in the water. Water's cold, that's super important when you cook potatoes. We're gonna season it with some of this Murray salt. These canisters are really good, they work great. Just tip a bit out there, makes it super easy to use. And then just, so you're not heavy-handed, just some salt in the water. Beautiful. Couple of pinches there, should be good to go. All right, so next thing in the mise en place, I'm just gonna bust this butter down into the 3 uses I need it for. It's literally just breaking it up. So I've just got the containers here. I want most of this for the Paris mash. Seems crazy, but trust me, you're gonna want it. All right, so all I'm gonna do here is I want about 2/3 to 3/4 of that for the mash. All right, and what you probably want to do as well is dice this up at this point, just so it's easier for the potatoes to take it on. And then you'll probably want to get that back in the fridge as well, because while this is cooking, it'll sort of start melting and make it harder to handle. Basically what's left over here, just in half for cooking the steak and half for cooking the veggies. All right, now for the main piece. I'm going to teach you guys how to reverse sear this steak. I've just taken it out of the packet. I'm gonna keep a super simple seasoning on it because we've got this beautiful sauce here. So that's gonna really give us some flavor in the finish on the plate. A couple of things. I've taken the grilling rack off the drip tray for like the tray you use in your oven for doing your grilled cheese and stuff like that. Relined it and I've put that lower than where the steak's gonna go in because the steak's gonna go straight on the grilling rack or on the wire rack. So it gets good heat circulation around it. You can put it on a tray if you don't have a drip tray or anything like that, but you gotta turn it halfway through and you don't really get a nice heat penetration, you sort of get a sealing on it. So we'll go through that now. So I've just got the steak out here, a little bit of olive oil. I've just got some extra virgin here. You want a decent one. Any of those real cheap ones, they sort of tend to have like a real sort of bittery sort of flavor to them. So you want something that's half decent. But yeah, just a light oil on that. It's just gonna grab the seasoning. Beautiful, decent coating on that. Because the steak's quite thick and it's in the oven for a decent amount of time, you're gonna wanna have a decent amount of seasoning on there so it penetrates nicely. So just roll it over all sides, salt, pepper. This one's just a nice cracked pepper. Right, and once we've got that ready, we're just gonna go on the wire racks and put that in straight into the oven above where we put that drip tray. All right, so we're just gonna prep the veg now. We've got the carrots in. As I said before, the carrots gonna take a little longer to cook than the broccolini, but we wanna get them cooked to the same amount of doneness, so ready at the same time. So I'm gonna chuck these in for 5 minutes. I sort of like to try and rest them so the tops stay up, but you really want most of the carrots submerged. So press them in a little bit. And then when they're sort of start to feel a little bit tender, we'll put these in because these are only gonna take about 2 minutes to get them to where we want them, so they're pan ready. All right, so the water's been seasoned, it's boiling, and then yeah, just take the 5 to 7 minutes it's gonna get this veg prepped. All right, the carrots are just tender, so I'm gonna chuck these bad boys in there for just another 2 minutes. And I've got a bucket of ice here. You want to make sure that you've got enough ice and water in there that you can put that stuff in there that it submerges and cools down real quick, so it can arrest the cooking process. And that means it'll be ready for the pan, so it'll only take a couple minutes to heat up in the pan, get a nice bit of color and ready to go. So these guys are ready. I'm just gonna pull them straight out of the water, just give them a little bit of a drain, like that, and then just straight into that ice water. You wanna get them underneath real quick. Carrots the same, be super gentle. You don't want those tongs to bruise them up at all. Keep them nice and tidy. All right, now that stuff there is ready to go in the pan. All we got left to do now is mash the potatoes, finish the steak off, and warm our sauce up. We're good to go. All right, one of the most important things about this reverse searing process is making sure you're bringing the temperature of the steak up to the right cookness before you pull it out and chuck it in the pan. And the way I get that right every time, it's one of these bad boys. It's an instant read digital thermometer, so you can see sort of the instantaneous internal temp of the steak. Super important. If you want to have a real good, consistent cook every time, this is super important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the steak to 40 degrees to 42 degrees internal temp. Once it gets there, it's going to come out, go in the pan. We're going to finish it in the pan. So I'm going to check the steak now and see where we're at. It's been about 30 minutes, so we should be pretty close. All right, the potatoes have been on for about half an hour. They should be pretty close. So I'm just going to open them up, see if they're fork tender, which they are, ready to go. Right, so the potatoes are drained. Now the reason I've left the skins on is because the potatoes won't take on as much of the cooking water. You don't have to do this. You can peel them, cut them up. You just got to be super perfect with when you cook them. Otherwise the potatoes will take on a lot of water. If it does, you can chuck them back in the pot, cook them out. That's what I do if I'm being lazy. But yeah, this way we'll just let them cool on the cooling rack over here so I can touch them and peel them. I've got the potato skins off. They're ready to go. So I'm going to use a ricer at the moment. This looks like a giant garlic press. You don't have to use this, you can just mash them, but this just sort of gets you a nicer, smoother consistency. But if you cook your potatoes right, you dry them off, you should be able to mash them sweet anyway. So I'm gonna rice them back into the pot that I cooked in, and then I'll show you how to finish it off. All right, so the potatoes all riced now. I've just got it back on the heat because I'm gonna melt the butter through it. Now you'll probably look at this and go, it's a lot of butter for that amount of potato, and you're right, Paris mash is like that. You want about 40% butter weight to potato weight. So for this, we've got 500 grams of potato. We're gonna use 350 grams of butter. We're just gonna whip it in. Got a fork here, we'll get started with just that. Whip it in over the low heat. I've also got a little bit of milk here because the potatoes will dry out a little bit. So just add a little bit of milk to keep them moist. You won't need much. I've got about 1/4 of a cup there and I don't think I'll use all of it. We'll put half this milk in at the moment. So and I've just got this over a low heat. You really don't want to burn your potatoes. You put a lot of effort into them. Those last couple of bits of butter in. Like I said, this is a real rich, creamy dish. And you're not going to have this every Tuesday. This is a real special occasion sort of one. So don't worry about the butter. All right, it's nice and fluffy, nice and wet, nice and moist. Nothing worse than a dry potato on Valentine's Day. So that does need some seasoning. So I've got some of the Murray River salt here again. I'm gonna put probably a teaspoon's worth in there to start. Remember, you can always add, you can't take away. So we'll start with that, a little bit of cracked pepper. People say that when you're making mashed potato, especially Paris mash, try and use white pepper because it doesn't, can't see it, but I disagree. I like the bits of pepper flake through it. I think it looks nice. I like the cracked pepper flavor, so adjust the seasoning to taste. All right, that's ready to go. I'm gonna keep the lid on it. The heat from the pot should keep it fundamentally warm enough. We'll stick it to the side, have a check of the steak. We should be pretty close. Should be ready to go. All right, the moment's here. Time to get the steak out. Now, if when you were cooking your potatoes, your steak was closer to the 40 to 42 degrees and your potatoes weren't ready, don't stress out. The benefit of this cooking technique is rip the steak out, let it rest. When your potatoes are mashed, chuck it back in and warm back up. All good, all right? So what we're gonna do, rip the steak out. We've got the pan heating up. Now, the pan needs to be a heavy bottom. This one's a stainless steel, or you can use cast iron. The reason you need that is if you put it in like a thin based pan, the steak will cool the pan down and you'll get like a real stewing effect. Steak for that caramelization, you really need like a heavy bottom, lots of heat, lots of ferocity there. So I'm gonna crank the heat up on this, get a little bit of seasoning in there. When you season a pan, that's your oil. Right, beautiful. Pan's nice and hot. You can see that oil's just got a touch of smoke on it, ready to go. All right, steak straight out, straight in. All right, beautiful color on that. It's got nice even heat. Here we go. Lovely sear on that. All right, now the way I like to cook this is I like to get a nice amount of color on your serving side, and then we're gonna add the butter. You should need, for a steak this side, probably 2 to 3 minutes aside. And as I said, I like to get a nice beautiful crust on that side. It's got a little bit of girth on it as well, so you want to get a bit of sear on the sides of it as well, just to get some nice crust all the way around. That beautiful sear on there, lovely color. I'm not a fan of flipping the steak lots and lots, but with this sort of technique, it's not really going to affect it too much if you've got to flip it a couple of times. So if you need the steak to keep going a little bit more, the finish temp on this, when you probe it, wants to be about 55 degrees. So you want to pull it out just before 50, let it rest. So when it's finished, it's at 55, and then we're getting an amazing medium rare. All right, now, flip it on that last side, butter in. Now we're gonna baste. So I'm gonna pull that butter down and warm the top of that steak up with that butter. Beautiful. Now this will help keep the steak nice and moist. In with some of that garlic. In with some of that thyme. All right, that steak's right on 50 internal. It's a beautiful time to take off and rest. So we're gonna rest that now. Straight on those wire racks. Pour over that butter just to finish it off. All right, now we're gonna wipe out that pan and get these vegetables done. All right, home stretch, guys. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna set up my serving dishes. I've got a nice long platter there for our vegetables, a nice round bowl here for the potatoes, nice serving steak for the steak there. I've also got a beautiful gravy boat here for the sauce. Don't skimp on the presentation, guys. This is for your loved ones, so you want to make sure that you're ticking all the boxes, all right? So back in the pan, we're just gonna warm these veggies up. As I said, they're cooked. We're just bringing them back and giving them a little color, all right? So you want to season these as well. Keep them moving, because that pan will give them a bit of color, which is what you want. You just don't want to burn them. A little bit of salt, pepper. Beautiful. All right, a little bit more oil and a little bit of that butter that we've got left over there. Let's finish these vegetables off, give them a nice dress. And optionally, you can add a bit of that garlic you've got left over there as well. I'm not going to. Beautiful. Here we go, broccolini on. And be super purposeful with this, guys. The reason chefs make food look as amazing as it does, because they have intent when they plate it. Know what you want it to look like. Let's copy that bad boy. All right, so I'm gonna flash this steak real quick now. Bring a bit of temp back into it. While that's happening, just put your mash in that bowl there. Beautiful. Give it a little well. You want a little bit of that seasoning on there, a little bit of that salt, so you get some nice little seasoning bits on there. That steak. And we're here, guys. Get that pan away. Sauce is ready to go in the microwave. It just follow the instructions. Just crack the bag. Give it 60 seconds. All right. When you cut this steak, because of the size of it, you're going to want to cut straight down this way. All right.
Lay that beautifully out on that serving tray. Fan it out a little bit so your wife or your husband can see how amazing you've done at that cook. Just a touch of salt on that bad boy, just a little bit. Gravy in the boat. There we go. All right, guys, and there you have it. A beautiful restaurant quality reverse seared steak with some amazing accompaniments. Remember, Super Butcher has 4 flavors of sauces. I've used pepper sauce today, but we got a mushroom, Diane, and a jus as well. And you can't go wrong with a beautiful tempranillo with a steak like this. Not as heavy as a Shiraz. It's summertime. It's going to be a little bit lighter, nice and fruity. It's going to pair beautiful with this steak. So don't forget your wine. And yeah, enjoy. Have a beautiful Valentine's Day, guys, and I hope you guys enjoy.